on chapter 4.
He does, and he finds it.
And so 4-13.
Oh,
Dot 13.
Yeah, that's right, I'm not matching this.
It's funny, we used to call it a period, now we call it a dot,
Dot.
so.
And it's a
Call it what it
hashtag.
is, yeah.
It's a hashtag, not a,
Oh, is that a
pound
hashtag
sign.
now?
A pound sign.
That's called a hashtag?
Oh, it's a hashtag.
Oh, okay. I'm not up on all that stuff, so.
You get forward slash and backward slash, and all that stuff. We never use that stuff before.
Do not forsake the commandments of the Lord, but guard what you have received, adding nothing to it and taking nothing away. And, yeah, well, I was getting, should have did this. Minute ago, 4:13. I think it was 12 to 14. Didn't work out right. There it is. All right. Students, and this is again talking about the Gentiles. Students are encouraged to observe the commandments as they are without alteration. The Apostolic Constitution says, keep what you have received from Him, the Lord. In the book of Revelations we read, I testify to everyone who bears the words of the prophecy of this book. If anyone adds to these things, God shall add to him plagues that are written in this book. And if anyone takes away from the words of the book of prophecy, God shall take away his part out of the book of life, and out of the holy city, and out of the things which are written in this book. That's Revelation 22, 18 and 19. And there's been discussion on, is that talking about Revelations, or is that really talking about the whole Bible? Of course, Revelations, there wasn't a whole New Testament when Revelation was written.
Right.
But, I mean, still God can line it up. And so I kind of think it's for the whole Bible, not just, even though over time they've added and taken away things from the Bible.
But it's interesting because when I was visiting with Laverne on Friday at the radio station, she seems to think that when they refer to that, it's the Old Testament. When they say that it was God-breathed, the New Testament hadn't been written.
Right, at the time, yeah.
So God breathed the Old Testament through prophets and, but then the New Testament was written by Paul, basically. And, she seems to think there's like a cutoff. That even though the New Testament is God, inspired, it was written by men, it was interpreting the Old Testament, which was God-breathed. I thought that's interesting.
Yeah.
But isn't that really even what a pastor's doing when he's...
But if you get real serious about that, that
And
would
Greg
only be Torah.
and I have discussed this in the past, and Greg pretty much got me convinced that there's no difference between the first and, Old and New Testament, and that it's a continuation.
Right, yeah.
But in my studies, we respectfully
Right, it's the whole.
disagree a little bit in the
Right.
fact that that I really consider the Old as the Jewish scriptures,
Mhm.
or the Hebrew scriptures,
Right,
really. And that I think New Testament is a wrong word, because it's a new covenant.
mhm.
It lays down the rules for
Oh,
Jesus, that it's a totally new covenant. Now, that's only my own opinion, and
Right.
everybody's more than willing to disagree with it,
Right.
but,
Yeah.
but that's kind of what I think, anyway.
You're a good Midrash teacher, because what you just did right there is exactly.
Right.
This is but then you entertain it because that's how we.
Yeah, I heard a statement last night, no, yeah, a guy called me last night. And he said, and this is true, he says, I really don't know anything, but I learn from those that know more than I do.
Yeah.
So I learn from those that write books and do things that learn more than, and so, like for class, I only gotta stay 5 minutes ahead.
But isn't that what Dr. Christ taught? You learn
Yeah,
from mentors or
well,
mistakes?
yeah. Uh-huh. You can have mentors or mistakes.
And a book can be a mentor.
Mistakes are more costly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, they become personal.
But everybody, I mean, you take the tiniest little baby, they have to learn things from somebody that knows more than they do. And then you get people that are bullheaded and, I wanna do it my way. I don't wanna learn, you know. And I had a daughter that got that very much.
So nothing changes, even though I have a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old granddaughter. Last night, most of what they learned, they've learned from us.
Uh-huh.
But then
Then they started learning from each
the
other.
2-year-old, when I handed her something to eat, she first wanted it, and then as soon as I let go of it, mine. And then I tried to readjust some stuff on her plate. No, this is mine. Then I started to sing her a song. I thought that would, no, stop. I'm like,
I will not be entertained.
that is not going to take place here now.
The 1-year-old just took whatever was given to her and ate it and.
Yeah, but also I learned, she learned a word. And she said it last night when they put her in the car. She learned the word outside. So a few weeks ago, they went outside to play. And they said, you want to go outside? She'll say, outside. But see, like you said, she's learned from here. She didn't know what outside
From
was.
somebody that knew something more than what she learned. I mean, so it's kind of like, yeah, if I didn't have somebody to teach me, I wouldn't know anything. Somebody that knows more than me had to teach me everything, how to eat.
That's why I respect everyone, because all of you know something that I don't know.
Right.
And when you look at that, you give value to people. But sometimes you don't know that until you get to talking to them, and then you're going, "Ah." You do that to me all the time. You go, well, you already knew that. No, but when you said that, that key would, I strung some more pearls.
Well,
and there
back
you
to the original thing, that's why I ask questions, because
go. Right.
somebody may know more than I know on it. That,
And it may not be
Another
so much more, but a
perspective, I
different
mean-
perspective, yeah.
you know, how's that go where there's two or more minds put together, thereby a third mind is created, you know, so.
Yeah.
What chapters do you have stumped in your book? Do you have 4 and 5? 5 and 6, I mean.
Yeah,
You do?
I got 5, and they flip another page.
Yeah, just one page.
I got
more.
6.
Okay, because I brought pages to catch everybody up. And what we're on right now is 4:13. Do not forsake the commandments of the Lord, but guard what you have received, adding nothing to it and taking nothing away. And I read in Revelations where it says, do not take anything away from these words, do not add anything to them.
It's also in
And of course, this was written then before Revelations was
It's
written.
in Deuteronomy.
Well, or at the same time.
I
Yeah.
looked at it a while ago, there's quite a few verses, and even Deuteronomy.
It's in Deuteronomy?
What, you know, it says, that if thou shalt keep these commandments to do them which I command thee this day to do them, to walk the Lord thy God, and to walk ever in his commandments, thou shalt add the, I was talking about cities, but the other one in Deuteronomy 12, what things soever I command you, you observe to do it, thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it. I mean, so, I mean, even though it's at the end, but it's, so that's one of the reasons too, the more you look at this, the more I see the continuity of Scripture.
Absolutely,
And-
yeah.
And if this is true, and Jesus is truth, did he say the same thing? Kinda. Did he add to or take away?
No.
Not really.
No, he taught the Torah, basically.
He reinterpreted it
Mhm.
because they had went to the nth degree
Right.
of washing his hands and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And not, you know, you
So is
couldn't
that
heal
adding-
on the Sabbath.
Was that adding to it?
Yeah. But they had added.
They
it.
did with
He
the
was correcting that.
spoken word,
Yeah.
the Torah,
And all
the,
their oral law was just
Yeah, the
the
oral.
Talmud and all that stuff.
Right,
There's
and
6
that's
pages
added
on
like
washing
800
your
new
hands.
rules that they had to follow,
So that was
that
added.
they didn't have to follow themselves. Like the guy that got healed at the pool of Bethesda. And then Jesus told him, pick up your bed and walk, or pick up your bed and go home, or whatever he said. And they were all mad about it, but they weren't mad about him getting healed on the Sabbath.
Or not about him doing.
Jesus told him to break one of their rules. It wasn't God's rule, it was a rule that they had. And because they couldn't carry their bedding on the Sabbath. And Jesus told them, pick up your bed and go home. And they were all mad about that.
So God knew in the Old Testament that they were going to, because he told them not to. And Jesus came back in the New Testament and said, look what you've done. From
No, I got
Deuteronomy,
lost there.
from Deuteronomy, what he just read,
Yeah,
God said, don't add to it, don't take from it,
right.
Right.
knowing full well that they would.
And that's why
Yeah.
he's teaching us, because these people had never heard this.
Right. And then Jesus comes and says, look what you've done.
Yeah. They've
When
added
you-
to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you told.
And still yet today, some of the early manuscripts have things that are different. Usually, they have things that are not there that are in the manuscripts that we have today, because somebody decided they were going to try to clarify it.
Mm,
And when they try to clarify it, they mess up the meaning.
yeah.
You know, like there's one in John 6:2 or something, that is like just 3 or 4 words, but it changes the meaning, and they think they're clarifying
Mhm.
things, but what they did is messed up the understanding of when Passover was, or that Jesus, I mean, in the middle of the summer, they're like having Jesus do Passover, which wasn't a thing, you know.
What have
So,
we been teaching even in this, before we even came to this apostolic reformation, that you're a human being, not a human doing? But if you really look at the way they had become in Judaism, it became about doing and not doing.
absolutely,
And not-
absolutely,
Right.
And Jesus, even when he addresses them about the tithing, he says, this is good, and you tithe your herbs and your mint, but he says, you neglected the weightier matters of love, faith.
Mhm.
And I can be wrong, but my opinion is the heart of the 10 Commandments even was love and hate. And he said, he that hates me, I will curse, but he that loves me, I will show mercy.
Mhm.
And I believe that is the heart of the commandment. Now that I am a father, I've said this.
you can see how it is, yeah.
I didn't like rules,
Right.
but now that I am a father and I've made the rules,
Mhm.
I saw that the commandments are love.
Mhm.
They're not restrictions. It's because I love my people. I want them to have a better life than everybody else has.
And these people that have near-death experience, whatever you think of that, that's what they always come back with, is it's love.
Mhm.
But, and I chased a rabbit there when I was gonna say, with the guy at the pool, when he got healed, the Jews in their Talmud stuff left an out for themselves, so that if they wanted to carry something farther than what's allowed, they could carry it and I get the day before or something, and then carry it that much farther on the Sabbath. So where Jesus said, you know, you got rules you can't even follow yourself. Well,
Right.
and that's what they did. They left themselves an out so that they could be holier, quote unquote, holier,
Appear.
appear holier
Okay.
than what the other people did.
Yeah.
You know, because, I mean, you know, he just carried his
There's-
bedding after he couldn't walk
There's
for
writings in the
30-some years.
sages that says, if the priest, that is his regular work,
Mm-hmm,
then how can he perform that on the Sabbath?
right.
And it's like, wait a minute, how do we deal with this? And then they said, if it's an act of mercy.
Mhm.
So they considered whatever the priest did to be an act of mercy.
Right.
So there's, but.
And Jesus says, now, if you have an ox fall in a
Yeah,
pit,
it's
you
an
know,
act of
what are you gonna do,
mercy.
leave it?
Yeah,
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so-
I asked a pastor that one time, you're supposed to work on Sunday, but that's the day you do your thing. And his answer was that he took Monday off.
Yeah. But I mean, and I saw somebody even this week say that he only kept 9 of the commandments. They said, well, what one do we not have to keep or something? They said the Sabbath. But see, there is an importance in rest. You can make it whatever and say this day or that day, but if you don't rest, you don't last very long.
Right.
That's part of the way God made it.
Yeah.
The pioneers that took the wagons from the east to the west,
Right.
when they traveled, there was different wagon masters, and some of them would stop on Sunday, and they didn't move forward on Sunday. And some of them traveled 7 days a week. Well, those that stopped on Sunday got there before the ones that went
Kept
7
on
days a week.
It happened the same way in Israel, but they had kept the Sabbath when they were caravanning back and forth. There were some caravans that went straight. Because I've been reading a story about this one, let's take this cup, he gets in with a caravan, but he wanted to make sure it was one that kept the Sabbath. And the ones that kept the Sabbath kept from being robbed because they kept things, and the other ones went ahead and they all got annihilated.
Oh, really?
It's just,
Yeah.
what has God kept us from, we don't
Right,
know
right.
by doing what he says to do.
Mhm.
My father, when he did the same thing, I was like, what's the big deal? I can say I like, but what did he keep me
Right.
from by having me be back at home at a certain time? Because there's not a lot of good that goes on, we used to say
After
between
midnight, yeah.
midnight to 2 or 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, but we don't know. But that's part of trusting them too, I think, is just, and I think it's teaching you even with your physical father and mother. When the mother says this, I've talked to her about, the Shema, hear and do. But my mom would say, did you hear me? I'm like, yeah, I heard you. She said, evidently not, you didn't do what I said to do.
Right. You didn't do what I
So
said.
she understood that hear and do,
Mhm.
There's gotta be
and
listen.
me, I just thought if I heard it, yeah, that was good. No.
That was good enough.
Yeah,
but that
when I
didn't
told
help.
you to take out the trash and you said you heard me, but it's still sitting there,
Yeah.
then there's a problem, there's something not linking up very good with you, so.
You got a disconnect there.
Yeah.
So, 4:14, confess your transgressions when you assemble, so that you will not have a guilty conscience when you pray. This is the way of life.
And is there scripture for that, if that's your fault?
Oh, yeah, all right. I'm just kind
I'm
of,
just saying, all of this sounds like it's just saying something, but it is all biblical.
but it's got, yeah, right. Okay. Dedicate 4:14 states, the vital principle of public confession of sins, the practice of being accountable to one another. Confess your faults to one another that you may be healed, James 5:16. We do not need to deal directly with God as individuals. However, public confession has proved to be extremely powerful and beneficial over the past 2,000 years. We can see the practice of open confession under count, and split up, Nico Laus von Zinzendorf, 1700 to 1760, in Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, John Wesley, 1703, 1791, in England, and Norman Grubb in Africa, and others throughout the church history. Grubb commands open confession in this manner: when our walls are down and we share our inner struggles with one another, we can deal with hidden sins while they are still in seed form. In this way, we avoid enemy traps as well as kept the floodgates for revival open. Seeds of sin are removed before hearing evil fruit, and the church stays in revival. In Africa, I found these instructions being obeyed in all simplicity, and perhaps that one thing was contributed more than any other to the spread of revival. Those simple revival believers often use unusual boldness in questioning into the lives of those they contact, inquiring as to what is their real spiritual condition, and experience the daily victory. In revival, we see that we are all brothers keepers, not for his sake, but for Jesus' sake. And that's what it says. What'd y'all get from
Even when we tell our weaknesses, sometimes other people will go, oh, I didn't realize I had a problem with that too.
But how does that work
You know
though?
what I'm saying? But we think Satan makes us think we're the only one dealing with whatever
Right.
it is we're dealing with. And sometimes when you vocalize it, it takes the power away from that on you it has for me. But I mean, I still have to do it over and over again sometimes because it's something I deal with, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying?
I think too, if it's epidictic that you speak your sins in public, you're gonna watch a little bit more what you do too.
Well, but how does that work? I mean, how does that,
What do you mean?
how does that translate? I mean, when you meet someone, how does that?
When you meet someone.
Yeah, what does that look like? It says to confess your transgressions when you assemble.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think that's-
You're assembling with a family.
I think it's talking about their household.
Yeah, you're assembling, you don't go out and assemble with somebody you don't know.
Right.
So you're sharing something intimate with somebody that's intimate with you.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's in a family of faith, and they were mostly house churches at that time.
Uh-huh.
Probably couldn't do it today.
If I shared those things in the world, they would take advantage of that and,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
or try to get me involved in that with them or whatever, would bring me down when we're supposed to be building each other up.
Supposed to build each other up in
And I'm sure, especially you think about pagan people coming and they had worship basically
Everything.
in themselves.
Mhm.
And then to come in and say, yeah, I'm still dealing with this, and there's others that understand this, yeah, we understand, we've been there too, and this is maybe some things I had to do to help me deal with that, or whatever. That even, I think the Shema is more than just for family, that teaching your children and children, I think that is what you're doing. You're teaching from your experience, some things you're learning, but that's what men and women should do in this congregation. Lovingly say, you know, I see this and I just wanted to let you know I've been there. I did that with a guy this week that I don't know very well, and man, he was not happy. But I said, I see, he's a Messianic guy,
Uh-huh.
and I said, I see you becoming very argumentative, because you like to ask questions where you already have an answer, so you can act like you know more than the other person. He's like, where are you getting this? I said, because I've seen you on Facebook every time, and then you keep asking me questions that I'm not answering, because I know they're argumentative. And he's like, well, and then he lashes out at me, and I said, now you're like a viper lashing out at me. I said, you're immature. I said, it's okay, most people go through this, but be careful, you're going to hurt people. And the reason I'm telling you is because I've been there. And he couldn't get the fact that I was confessing to him, I see some of where I was
Right,
in you.
Mhm.
But it was still like, he's wanting to start something and do something, but with no covering, he's like a wild stallion. And he's wanting to just go out there and do something, and he's going to hurt people, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I don't normally do
Yeah,
that, but had a.
made for an
enough-
exciting week anyway.
It's been a year or so that I've known this guy, and he's asked me, when he first started, it was fine questions, but now he's found a few things, and now he's wanting to start something
He's
of
trying
his
to
own.
entrap you.
But yet, he's not, that's the danger of doing what our pastors talked about, going out on your own.
Right.
And you start, you have no covering. That's what I told you, you need a covering. You need someone that can tell you no. And evidently, I'm not that person. But I mean, it was, I needed to be able to do that too, because in my, whatever, it's gonna happen more and more as you become older, more mature. You see the immaturity that you had
Right.
in others. And it's not that you're lambasting, but this guy asked me a question over a week ago, and I didn't respond. And so he sent me back, "Are you there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm here, but I'm just, okay, now that you've asked again, I'm gonna just let you tell you what I see."
Oh, you did this through texting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then
Well,
I
at least
finally-
he couldn't take a swing at you.
Well, I mean, and then I finally had to just say, there's no response needed. I wasn't, you don't have to prove yourself, I'm just trying to, you don't see that I'm trying to love you and keep you from hurting yourself and other people,
Mm.
because I did
Well,
the same thing.
And he can damage people too, in that, you know,
Yeah.
there's something put off, you know, so it's like.
I know you probably don't believe it, but there was a time when people didn't want to be around me.
No.
Seriously. Stump will tell you that, isn't that true?
Still happening today.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
See how far I moved down?
But you see
No,
what I'm,
he's right, he's right. And me too,
Right.
because I'm very blunt.
well,
You did what? Well, hell, you're going to hell. You know, I mean, I'm very judgmental or blunt or,
right.
but Jesus was too.
Yeah?
Yeah,
But I think there's some people that do that to you because they want you to correct them. I think they're actually
looking
Looking for
for
an answer.
guidance.
Yeah.
for that covering in you in a roundabout way because
Yeah.
they don't have it. So I think that happens. I have a niece, every time she does something wrong, well, she wants to be right, you know, and Donna. But she wants me to correct her.
Mhm.
I don't hear from her for months, but if she does something wrong,
Well, she
she
doesn't have a
contacts.
mother or father figure in
She's
her life.
immature, and she doesn't have a mother or father who can
Give her instruction.
give her instruction.
Yeah,
So she looks to that for when she knows she's doing wrong,
right.
to get corrected.
Mhm.
She's looking for correction.
Well, you may hear from this guy again, like you.
Well, I mean, I'm sure I will. I mean, it's not I defended him or anything like that,
Right,
but
yeah.
it's, and I know that he thought that I knew something. I said, no, I haven't even talked to your former, I haven't talked to him in a long time, but
And I'm like,
I have observed, but don't we observe?
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, he's probably, the last couple of days, been working up a comeback for you.
But it's okay, and
Yeah,
it's all right.
yeah.
You know, I wish somebody would have said something to me when I
Well,
was.
Even if you can teach your kids and your grandkids, they listen less
We do
than
this
anybody else.
Listen and do teaching with Addison daily. She'll say, I hear you, I understand, and then she doesn't do it. And
Right.
so I would say, no, it's not good enough to hear it.
Yeah, she understands
You've
how to
got to
get by
do what
with it,
mama
yeah.
says, or do what grandma says, you know.
It's, we all have this will. We wanna do, I do it, I wanna do it the way I do it.
Like the 2-year-old.
Yeah,
But-
I do it.
Even this, you know, it's good for us to say, you know, I've been dealing with this week. Struggling, there's some things that came up, and then you can gain encouragement from your family, your household of faith. But you also, it's amazing to me, how many times at Trace Diaz have we went and somebody be there and think nobody's ever dealt with what they're dealing with.
Right,
And then by the
All of
end
a
of the
sudden,
weekend, they're like,
you find out
every
over-
one of you guys is
Over
dealt with
half the people been divorced 9 times and committed adultery. You know, they think I'm the only one that's sinned. And
Yeah.
then they look up, man, we all think,
Yeah.
You're all a mess.
That's what the scripture says, we all sin.
And that was very eye-opening for me okay, this is a group of Christians having all these kind of problems. It was like eye-opening.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, two-thirds of the New Testament is telling the Christian how to live. He's not trying to save people, he's trying to make sure the ones that are saved living like they're supposed to be living.
Right,
Right.
and that's what I find with the Didache. It doesn't talk anything about heavens and rewards of heavens. It's, this is how you live
Here.
today, day to day,
Yeah, here.
you know, that's kind of the teaching.
And that's basically what Torah taught too, is
Well,
being
yeah.
ready. Live today, today is your last day.
Well, you don't really have to worry about heaven or the rewards if you're living like you're supposed to be living on earth.
Right.
That'll take care of itself.
Right.
Mhm.
Now, it would be, and I know you step out in that direction, but if we woke up every morning thinking what I could do to gain something else in heaven, we wouldn't help anybody that needed help.
That's right.
We'd overlook the ones that really need us. We'd walk by them and do something different.
But in today's church world, that's a lot of what goes on, is you are saved because of the rewards of fire insurance, you know, and
Right.
that type of thing, and it's not, in a lot of churches, and a lot of, the teaching is about heaven and hell, not about how to live today.
Right.
I used to sing in a Southern Gospel quartet. It was frustrating to me. 90% of your Southern Gospel songs are about going to heaven, or being in heaven, or the sweet by and by.
Mhm.
Very few about how to live this life here on earth.
Stand strong.
Yeah, but you,
Be firm in the word.
But-
None of them songs
you
about
still-
Ephesians,
Right.
none of them.
Right. And,
Because it's more uplifting.
yeah,
I mean,
everybody wanted to be happy and.
It's a reward, it's,
Yeah,
yeah,
we're gonna be, yeah, whatever.
Right.
so,
But today is important. Today's a
right,
gift.
yeah.
Mhm.
And this is what it's teaching the pagans, is
Right.
that.
And what can you do with it, not what can you get out of it, but what can you do with it?
Right.
What do you do with gifts sometimes? Remember as a child, you would hoard your, whenever you got something, oh, that's mine.
Mine.
And yours is mine too.
Yeah. Oh, you sound like my roommate. I don't know. But don't we, if we're not careful, we will do that spiritually. Somebody will have this gift and this gift or whatever, and if we hoard them, then it doesn't benefit the body.
Right.
It's like, having 5 little kids and they all have their own toys, but they won't play with each other because it's mine.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And they miss out on all.
I've seen that too, even when I was little. They could play with these toys, but not this one. This one is mine.
Right.
But when we are even to share what this is talking about, then it benefits everyone to do that. No matter what your gift is, we all have gifts. God never said he left somebody out and he didn't give them one.
Yeah.
If he's a righteous father, and he is,
Mhm.
would you ever see, my mom would never give one child something and not give, I mean, we may get a half a stick of gum, not a whole stick of gum,
Mhm.
but everybody got a half a stick of gum.
Mhm.
That's just the way it was.
Mhm.
And she was teaching us how to treat people,
Right.
but even herself, she wouldn't do that, but,
Well,
We-
that's kind of like the feeding the 5,000. We talk about them feeding the 5,000, but it's like, who had the bread and the fish that gave them? This is my bread, this is my fish. We're set, but yet they gave them. Who was the family that did that? You don't even know.
look at the mother that cared enough to pack a lunch.
Right, exactly. They took care of themselves, and yet through that, they took care of an entire, hillside.
Yeah.
So, that's
And
always.
there was a lot left over.
Yeah, that's always a trick. Well, somebody had to have brought that, somebody had to have said, well, yeah, here, we've got this.
Isn't that the same way he does with us, think spiritually now? Most of us don't have the greatest of self-image. We think we're very little in the kingdom. And as far as the whole kingdom, yes, that's true.
Right,
But can't God use that
right,
to
exactly.
do great and mighty things? He said,
Everybody-
greater than this shall you do.
No two people alike.
Yeah.
5-1.
Whoa, 4 minutes,
Huh?
4 minutes.
Okay, we got 4 minutes to do 5-1. Well, we got out of 4 anyway. The way of death is this. First of all, it is wicked and full of cursing, murders, adulteries, lust, illicit sexual acts, thefts, idolatries, witchcrafts, magic, robberies, false witness, hypocrisies, duplicity, trickery, arrogance, malice, self-seeking, greed, foul speech, jealousy, overconfidence, haughtiness, and pretensions.
And that is the letter from Paul to Timothy,
It
It's
is.
also in Corinthians.
that in the end days, this is what people will be.
And that's true,
It is.
yeah.
Every single one of those.
In First Corinthians, he gives it basically the same list. And then he said, and such were some of you, but ye are washed, but ye are sanctified. But he is showing that that's the way of death.
Right.
And it's very similar, he talks that list of all those things. Even, it says effeminate things and different things like that. And if you look farther in that book, they dealt with those problems. With the man that was with his stepmother or things like that, and they dealt with church discipline because this was the way of death.
And that's
he
the
was teaching
way
was way of
that the
life.
pagans lived.
Right.
Right.
And that's the way they lived, but for them, if you said all this and that's their way of life, then how do we live now? If we can't.
I know, everything's going back to paganism is what I see.
Well, I actually saw last night that there is a couple, they're a parent and a child who have asked it to be legal that they can get married.
Oh,
Really?
Yes. I mean, it's like, I would have never expected to have seen that
Yeah.
in your
in my
lifetime.
lifetime.
Yeah.
It just floored me. I just sat there and looked at it for a few minutes like,
Am I
really
am I
gotten
seeing
here.
this? Am I seeing
yeah,
hearing
this
right?
is,
Here it lists those things as 22 evil vices, is what it's called.
Okay.
The vice list in the Didache, which should be by this time in the training program, seem particularly shocking, simply open a window into common believers in the Gentile world of that day. Listed here is a catalog of sins which faithfully reflect the horrible immorality of heathism in the Roman Empire. For out of the heart proceeds evil thoughts, murders, adulterers, sexual immorality, theft, false witness, and blasphemies, Matthew 15:19. And that's what it says about it.
I think that's one of the biggest statements that's overlooked, even in the middle of it. Was God after your behavior, or was he after your heart?
Right.
If he has your heart, your behavior will follow.
Compare,
That's why I think.
compare this to the Ten Commandments. The way of death is this, the way of life is this. The way of life is the Ten Commandments, the way of death is right opposite of the Ten Commandments.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, we're just dummies.
And what it's doing is,
If you think that the Ten Commandments is bad and hurtful,
Right.
it's the way of life.
Right.
We won't make it without it, period.
But it's restrictive, we can't do what we want, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, because what I wanna do will get me in trouble every time.
Every single time.
Every time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Then it comes back to that verse, a man's heart is desperately wicked, who can know it? Hopefully, we really don't know, because it is true. It left to a man's devices and his own thinking. Sometimes my thoughts go where, I'm like, where in the heck did that come from?
Well,
Yeah, you ever
this-
had some crazy thoughts, and you're like,
Wait a minute, what in the world?
this statement in itself is kind of in your face to the pagans, to the Gentiles at that
Right.
time, because that's the, I mean, if they didn't want a kid, they left it out for the animals to eat, you know. And, you know, that's kind of the way of life what they did at that time. So, yeah, looks like our time is up. Let's pray and we'll do our thing. Our Heavenly Father, we just thank you for, once again, for all this information that you revealed in these last days, and we just thank you that we can discuss them. We can agree, we can disagree, but we can learn what the apostles taught. And we thank you for all you've done for us in Jesus' name. Amen.